Hello there. You're looking at Father Ed Nadali from the Father Nadali Good News Fund. And I'm welcoming you to our new program. Yes, the Good News Program. A program that's going to bring us a lot of challenges. One of the biggest challenges we had over the pandemic was everything was closed up. And what was closed up tremendously were the churches, synagogues, and the mosques. So you couldn't go to church. So we find that people are still afraid to come. But if you got your 2 vaccine shots and you wear your mask, there's no reason why you can't come to. A lot of people, on the other hand, are getting used to just sitting back and saying, well, I'll watch it on television. But watching it on television is like watching a meal. I just saw the movie Look Who's Coming to Dinner with Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. But when they watched the movie, they sat down and ate. But I didn't eat with them. Even when you see somebody eating, that's just not the same thing as eating yourself. So I'm asking you to come back to church. So I have this little visual here. Right here, and the visual says, please come back to me, to Jesus, and please come back to the church. So Jesus is calling you to come back. Please come back to me, Jesus, and come back to your church, our church, because Jesus is the head of the church. Have you seen these billboards? I've got them in 7 different cities right now. I've got them in some of the Nutmeg cities also. So think about coming back to the church. And the Lord's waiting for you. Please come back to me. Please come back to the church. Please come back to Christ. Please come back to me. Jesus is talking about himself when he says me. So I'm asking you, please come back to your church. Now, why come back? Well, first of all, the first reason why you want to come back to church is because you love God. The second reason is because of the 3rd commandment. The 3rd commandment says, thou shalt keep the Lord's day holy. And that is by worshiping. Not by sitting back on television and watching it, but by worshiping it. So the good news is that most of you have the vaccine, and there's no reason why you can't come back. And those who do not have the vaccine, wear the mask. In fact, both would, with the vaccine and without the vaccine, and please come back to church. The main reason why you're called to come back to church is because you believe that Jesus loves you, and Jesus wants to come to you. Jesus wants to come to you under the appearances of bread and wine. And now I'll take a phone, and before I go any further, let's take a phone. Yes, you're on with Father Ed. Hello.
Hi, yes. Hi, I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Where do you see the church going in the future?
Well, you're really on the topic I'm talking about. I'm glad you tuned into the show, because I was talking about people come back to church. I see my problem today is that people are substituting religion for politics. Politics has become their main religion. They don't go to church, but they go to rallies, or they go shopping. But where's the church going? In the opposite direction of politics. Because politics, in its own way, has taken over the role of religion. It's become a religion. Unfortunately, in politics now you have people who are Democrats and Republicans, or independents. And families fight over one who's a Democrat and one who's a Republican. So where's the church going? I think the church is going to a place of smallness. There's a connection. As there's less people going to church, there's less priests. And as there's less priests, then there's less masses. So I see the church getting a lot smaller in the future. Right now we had 215 parishes. Now we're down to 130. In a few years, we'll find ourselves down to, 85 or so. So where we had 215, when I started out as a priest 62 years ago, I find now we'll be having 85 priests. And the big problem is not just no babies. People aren't getting married in the church. Like I talked to a priest today. He went to his godson's wedding. It was down at the beach, and he didn't celebrate it. It was just a type of a natural ceremony, and it broke his heart that the couple, even at the reception, didn't ask him to pray. So what we see, the beginning of the end of Christianity as we know it in New England, and not the rest of the world. We go to Africa. I just send out 30,000 rosaries to Nigeria, Uganda, to Chile, and to Philippines. The church is growing in other parts of the world. But in New England, I see the church getting smaller. In the Midwest, I see the church growing. In the South, I see the church growing. But with us, no. You have to have people getting married in the church. And you have to start having babies. And they're not having babies, they're having dogs. Today, as I came up to Nutmeg, I saw about 5 people not walking a carriage, but walking their dogs. In fact, I did see one carriage, but there was a dog in the carriage. So we're not having children, and because we're not getting married in a church. So if you don't have that basic foundation of wanting children and wanting to receive the sacrament of marriage, so that you could have God's strength and God's grace to carry the cross of marriage, because marriage is a cross. It's a very heavy cross, the most difficult cross I think people have. Marriage is the most difficult cross a person has to carry, because marriage is not about being happy, and marriage is about making the other person happy. I find many people, when I have marriage preparation, when I used to, I'd ask the couples or the people, what do you want for them? Well, we want them to be happy. Never do they say, I want to bring happiness to the other person. So when we look at marriage today, we're not going to look at kids. Most people my age were getting married in their 20s. Now people in their getting married in their 30s. I was just talking to someone who's thinking about getting married in 40s. If you're getting married in 40s, chances are you're not going to have children. So at the beginning, the future of the church in New England is very dim. The church in the West, the South, in Africa, in the Philippines, in the Pacific area, in South America, I see the church growing. But now, for New England, what do I see in the future of the church? I see a much smaller church, and I hope a more dynamic church. But most people that I know, they're over 65. In fact, all the people that help me with, not all, 90% of the people that help the Good News Fund to pay for those billboards that I just showed, they're in their 80s. So the people who support the church are in their 80s or in their 90s. So the future of the church in New England is going to be a much smaller church because of lack of babies, lack of marriages, and lack of priests. That's my humble opinion. What's your other question?
My other question is, how long have you been a priest, and what were the ups and downs of your priesthood?
Well, I'm closer to the tomb than I am to the womb. I remember going on a retreat, a silent retreat, when I retired, and the first thing they took my microphone away from me, and my cell phone away from me. And when they were all younger people, I was so impressed. People from all over the world who were serving in one way or the other. And they said to me, what are you doing here? You're in your 80s. I said, well, I'm closer to the tomb than I am to the womb, and I want to shape up before I ship out. So in 1959, we had 300 seminarians at St. Thomas Seminary. Now there no longer is a seminary, but it's a pastoral center for the Archbishop's Chancery and all the different offices of the Chancery. So I saw in 1959 a real flowering church, a bubbling church with vocations all over the world. When I was ordained in 1959, there were 18 of us. Right now, in the 8 years of the seminary, there are less than 18. I think there are 16 men over 8 years. Now, like this year, we had 2 ordained. Next year, we have nobody coming. So in these 62 years, I've seen the church change completely. I've seen where we had 104 schools, and now we have 40 schools. Where we had 215 churches in my time, now we'll be down to 85 churches. So I see the evolution of materialism and secularism really coming over after the 60s. There was a tremendous change in people's attitude. And it's very coincidental that as not just the abortion, but the pill and the contraception came in, and then the idea of sex was that of pleasure. And what we found is a growing number of divorces because of that. Right now, I got a couple calls from TikTok. Pray for my daughter who's getting a divorce. So once you became free with the contraceptive, we see the evolution of the church, where people looked at sex for selfish pleasure primarily and not for procreation. And if you look, I need a drink, so you have to wait for me for a minute.
Okay.
If you look at in the 60s, when contraception became legal, right now I see them being advertised on television all over the place. And you can see how that evolved. Then what happened with marriage? It was weakened tremendously, and the divorce rate went way up during that time of the 60s when I was a young priest. And with the divorce rate going up, then we saw because of contraception contributing to it, but also we saw abortion go up. You know, we have over 60 million abortions. Now, a lot of those people, I'd say most of those people, used contraceptives, but they thought that it was safe, but they forgot it or this or that, and they ended up being pregnant and ending up getting an abortion. I remember the first girl that came to see me, she was 16 years old. Not the first girl. A couple came to see me. They just had an abortion, and they felt very guilty of it. And they brought this 16-year-old girl to see me, and she was pregnant. And if you come to see me, I'm not going to talk about abortion. I'm talking about pro-life. And when a person's unmarried like that, I'm for adoption. But I said, well, you go home and tell your mother that what happened. And because she loves you, she's going to, I'm sure she'll be upset, but she'll help me. That was on a Wednesday. I called the mother, the family on Friday, just to talk to them and see how they're going. And the mother looked at me, she says, she's going to have an abortion Monday. And she hung up. Now, this is a mother who goes to Mass all the time. It's one thing to talk about the theory of contraception, the theory of abortion, and then when it hits home, that's when the real person comes through. So as we change in abortion, we also change in the evolution of attendance in Mass. I think there's a big connection between the change of our sex attitude and our attitude towards church. I think there's a definite connection. So from 1959, when I was ordained, I've seen the evolution of morality, where now, me, myself, the big question is entitlement. I'm entitled to everything. Now we have all these stimulus checks going over, and nobody is going to work because they're taking the checks. I went out to lunch with a friend of mine yesterday, and I went to a restaurant, and they weren't open until later on. I went to the other restaurant. I noticed that there was only one waitress, and the poor girl was running all over the place. And when she came to me, I said, "You're by yourself, aren't you?" And a lot of the customers were getting upset because they had to wait. But I realized that the person was all by herself. Now, the other waiters and waitresses didn't come back because they're still getting the stimulus check. So when you have this attitude of entitlement, I deserve these checks. And then we have so many people out there begging for jobs, begging for people that they have jobs and they're not coming up to it. So we see the evolution of entitlement, and me, myself, and I, and selfishness, and all those contribute to our attitude towards morality and our attitude towards church. So I've seen, and I think contraception has been a big contributing factor to that. So now we see, like I said, over 60 million abortions since Roe Wade. And they continue. Now they say, well, there's a lot less abortions. Well, that's not true, because you can take the pill after, and you don't have to go to a doctor. You just go to a pharmacy, and they'll give you that pill. So we have abortion going on all over the place, but it's not at an abortion clinic. It's happening in people's homes. So that evolution, I think, is the evolution of the church, and it goes along with the morality of our United States. You know, somebody says, we got to make America great again. Does that mean power, prestige, and position? Well, that's not my making America great again. To me, to make America great again is to bring back the 10 Commandments so that we can become free. When you don't follow the 10 Commandments, you're not free. You're a prisoner of some addiction. Excuse me. And they didn't put any vodka in that drink, so I have to just take more than one drink. But seriously, the church's evolution over those 20 years goes along with the evolution of materialism, secularism, and the political world that has taken the place of religion. I see the evolving of the church with the evolving of what happened after World War II. Remember, we have not won a war with all our military prowess and all our equipment and all our military machinery. We have not won a war since World War II. We didn't win the Iraq War. We didn't win the Afghanistan War. And we didn't win the Korean War. No, we haven't won a war. And one of the reasons I think we haven't won a war is because of our attitude. Our attitude of in God we trust. And we have that on our nickel, and we have that on our newspaper, on our paper. But we don't have that in God we trust, are really committed to God. So that's kind of a summation of the church's evolution with the evolution of our country today. Any other questions?
No, that's it. Thank you, Bobby. You're very informative.
Okay, thanks a lot for your call.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, I see another call coming in. Hello?
It's me.
It's you.
It's Joyce.
And now, let's see. I think I have a book. Yes, I do. I have a book called Starving Your Fears. And it was written by a most wonderful woman, Joyce E. Logan, PhD. And to whom am I speaking right now?
You are speaking with Joyce Logan.
Joyce Logan. Well, I'm going to show the book right now to our viewers. And tell me about your book. Explain to me what it's all about.
Sure. Well, I wrote this book because I had suffered a great deal with anxiety and phobias, and my mother did as well. And through that was quite a long journey of figuring out what to do, because, Father, when someone has a lot of fearful thoughts and their anxiety, is just a little bit out of control, whether they're sitting in church or going into a supermarket or even, driving your car, no one really recognizes that because it's not like they see a broken leg or a broken arm or you're in a wheelchair and they wonder, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? And it's very difficult, I think, for many people to explain it, what that feels like, to have such adrenaline running through your body. And the person who has this, it seems sometimes to come on for no reason at all. So it's frightening. It can be a very lonely place to be. You can feel very judged by it. And throughout the years, I really went deep to find out what causes this within me, what caused this within my mother. And then I met so many other people who also suffered with panic attacks and phobias, and to the point where they have agoraphobia, or they don't want to leave the safety of their own home. And I've been through a lot. I tell people I have been your guinea pig. I've been through all kinds of therapy, and I was told that, it's the food that I eat, and it's this, and it's that, and it's a certain kind of food. Like, on that day, you ate corn on the cob, so it's the fructose and the corn that did it. And I would think to myself, no, it's not that. It's something else. And sometimes our bodies just misfire a little too much adrenaline. And I began to see very clearly, and through the help of many great books that were written way long ago, like Dr. Claire Weeks from Australia. She was really a pioneer in this. And she really explained that the body can just, your brain can send different messages to your body that makes you feel like you're in danger. So many, many years ago, genetically, back when, man had to hunt for food, and there was called the fight or flight syndrome. So they actually had to fight. They had to fight to protect their land. They had to protect their food, their family, whatever. So that adrenaline was released. And then they would run and take care of business and all that. And then afterwards, the adrenaline would just go away and everything hopefully was calm. So fast forward to this day and age, where we're sitting at our computers, or you're just sitting quietly, and maybe it begins with a subtle thought that you're not even aware of, and something gets you a little concerned. And you may be the type of person that has more of a type A personality. In fact, they say the good news is that the people who tend to have anxiety and panic attacks have higher IQs. And they have greater creativity because they begin to panic and say, oh my gosh, what if this happens? What if? And before you know it, it's like a fire out of control in their body. So knowing this began to help me realize, I have to accept this, because if I stand out of the way of the fear, if I just say to myself, well, you know something, you've been through this many, many times. You're not dead yet. Hasn't killed you. And then I've read that it actually could be really helpful for your body, because it does get your heart going. It feels like a little exercise. So I began to change my words and to change my thoughts. And that's why I called my book Starving Your Fears, because most people feed their fears. They can feed their fears about, well, just take what we're living in right now, the whole pandemic. And prior to that, it's, there's just a myriad of reasons why someone would have, fears, whether they're afraid to drive, or they're afraid of having a panic attack while they're driving, or driving over a bridge, or, again, go back to sitting in church, because I have to tell you, sitting in church was difficult for me back many years, because if you excuse yourself to leave, especially when the good father is giving a sermon and it's very quiet, it looks disrespectful. So the more a person feels trapped, that's claustrophobia, the more their adrenaline is racing. They feel like they're going to faint. They're afraid they're going to faint. So what happens is they add another layer of fear and another layer of fear until they actually do get themselves out of church, and they probably even say, excuse me, and they're very polite, and they leave, and they never go back. And then that fear then kind of spawns other things they don't want to do, and the world becomes smaller and smaller.
I just talked to a friend who did that. He got very upset at Mass one day, at the 5 o'clock Mass in East Berlin, and he starts sweating, and he hasn't gone to church yet. What are some of the steps to take to starve your fear? Give me a couple steps that are in your book, and I'm sure a lot of people want this book after I show it again. What would you say? What's the first step I would take if I am anxious and I'm filled with fear, and the fear controls me, and I don't control my fear?
Yeah, and just know that you always are in control. You're in control of your thoughts, and you're in control of what you say. So the first thing is, and I know for people that are suffering with this may think this sounds impossible, but I can promise you it works, and it's in your breath. It's in your breath. Because what I was starting to say about that flight or fight is that when you get nervous, you tend to breathe through your mouth, and it's called thoracic breathing, where your upper chest is going up and down. But the moment you get your breath to your belly, and you can do that just so easily. You close off one nostril, breathe in through your nose, breathe out through that nostril. And you can alternate it. You could just lean on something and do it. It's not very evident that you're doing it. But when you do that, that's a quicker way to get your breath into your belly. And when you do diaphragmatic breathing, it sends a message up to your brain that you're no longer in trouble. So your brain shuts off the adrenaline and the cortisol and all the hormones that makes you think you have to run. And because we're not running and beating people up, hopefully, your body thinks you're in trouble and is trying to get your attention. Your body's actually trying to do a good thing. And so it perpetuates that feeling like, well, we'll do something. You've got to do something. So the moment you switch your breathing to belly breathing, but then tell yourself, even if you don't believe it at first, just say, this is fine. I've been through this before. It's just anxiety. It's just, I'm fine. I feel this is going to go away. And then try to really pay attention to what someone else is saying. There are people who are helped if they have an elastic band around their wrist, and sometimes they just snap it. It's just the little pinch of that brings them back to the present, because they're not in the present when this is happening. So stay in the present. Do a deep belly breath. If you're sitting in a church pew, look at the wood in front of you. Look at what someone's wearing. Start to just get your mind off of yourself. And the best thing is not to run, because if you exit, then you may feel embarrassed coming back, and that's okay. That's okay if you do, and I hope you do go back to wherever that took place. But it also reinforces within you that you don't want to be there. So even if you have to excuse yourself and stand somewhere else, or let's say you don't want to enter into an elevator because you're afraid, I would say touch the elevator and touch the knobs and look around and just know you're okay. You're okay, because if you start looking at every little fear, you will never leave your house, because everything could be dangerous. So you have to get strong with yourself about that you will not allow that to happen, that life is meant to be joyous, that you use your faith, God and the angels and people who have departed, who love you and support you, and just feel like you're not alone. Nothing bad is going to happen to you except you're going to have these fearful thoughts. But you can switch those thoughts and think, I can't control my breath. I can't control my thoughts. And even if you a little bit lie to yourself and say, I love where I am right now. I love sitting in church. There is no safer place. Isn't it beautiful? Switch the thoughts, change your breath, and speak less about it to yourself. Make light about it, saying millions of people have this. There's celebrities who have this. There's so many people that haven't really talked about it that are talking about it now. You're not alone. You're not the most anxious person in the world. You're not the sickest person in the world. This is almost the new norm. But it's been going on for a long time, and how lucky you are. You live in this day and age, and not when my mom was growing up, when there weren't books to help her, or even a doctor that really knew how to explain this. So you're very fortunate to be living in this time where it is acceptable. People do understand that, but get out of your own way. Step out there. Life is meant to be lived. Like there's that saying, ships were meant to be in the ocean. Like ships look safe in harbor, but that's not what they're built for. And you're not built for that either. You're built to get out there, enjoy life, and get your mind off of yourself and know that you're okay. It's all going to be okay.
Well, just to summarize, I have a little philosophy.
Yes.
I don't have too many principles, and people can be upset about this. I don't have too many principles. One is I can't do everything today, but I can do something, or one thing today. The other thing is, this goes back when I had an operation on cancer, and I was really uptight about it and after I had the operation. And I said, will I be upset about this a week from now? And you won't, so why be upset about it now? And I just had an operation about a month ago or 2 months ago. And after when I was just before the operation, I was anxious, as you were saying. But I said, well, will I be upset about this a week from now or 2 weeks from now? So why should I be upset about it now? That helped me. Helped me quite a lot. Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'll let you go, but I'll show this book again. If anybody wants it, all they have to do is call my number, 860-335-2342, because I have some books in my library if you'd like to have one. Anybody watch? What's the main reason why they should read the book? And then I'll let you go.
I say this book is actually for anyone. You don't have to have extreme anxiety. The main reason would be to see how much more you can enjoy life and how you can create your own reality. You are the master of your ship. And I feel that my book speaks in plain, everyday language of how to do that. And I go through the steps when I dealt with people and how they came out of it. So I think it will help just so many people, especially in these challenging times.
Good. Well,
so thank you so much. Thank you so much for talking about my book. And I know if you send it to anyone that they will be helped. Yes.
Yeah, I know it's helped me, and I've given it to other people, and they've been helped by it.
Well, so, you helped me too. I love you, Father Red.
And I love you too. Take care. Bye-bye.
We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Joyce. Now, that was Joyce Logan, who's the author of. There's a picture of her on the back. I don't know if we could get into it. We'll give you some idea of just a wonderful woman, and she's still has many clients, but she's involved in other things too. So if there's anybody who's interested, my telephone number's up there, 860-335-2342. Okay, we talked about the coming back to your church and coming back to Jesus. I showed you this. There's another one I want to show you. And I've given out over 10,000 of these. This says, Jesus promises to protect you. This is a picture of divine mercy right here. And I've given over 10,000 of them. And back in 1933, Jesus appeared to St. Faustina. And she was a nun in Poland. And he appeared to her, and he said, I want you to show in a concrete way who I am. I am divine mercy. So and here the priest says, put this card on your window, in your door. And these are some of the promises that Jesus made to St. Faustina's. Promises our Lord made through St. Faustina. I will protect the cities and homes in which the divine mercy image is found. I will protect the cities and homes in which the divine mercy image is found. And then souls who spread the honor of my mercy, I shield through their entire lives as a tender mother her infant. Souls who spread the honor of my mercy, I shield through their entire lives as a tender mother her mercy. And at the hour of death, I will not be judge for them, but the merciful Savior. So seal this little 5x7, seal this on your door. And these promises again. One, I'll protect the cities and homes in which the divine mercy is found. Second, souls who spread the honor of my mercy, I shield through their entire lives as a tender mother her infant. And at the hour of death, I will not be a judge for them, but a merciful Savior. One of the things that people don't realize, that God does want to show his mercy. And the interesting part is, I don't know if you know anything about the Shroud of Turin. That's the shroud that was wrapped around Jesus' body when he was crucified and buried. And then that shroud was found, and the face, the formation of Jesus' face is the exact formation of Jesus' face on this picture. This picture was divinely inspired by Jesus through St. Faustina to wants to show his mercy. But you know, you have to ask for mercy. And one ingredient for mercy is that of humility. When you are a humble person, then you feel free to ask for mercy. But if you're a proud person, you don't need mercy. You're self-sufficient. So those three things, starving your fears, I showed you, and this is an excellent book. And then the book on the card on divine mercy, and then the please come back to Jesus and our church. You might find them on some of the billboards that I have around here. And I have them in Bristol, and this goes to Bristol, and I have in Burlington and other places, Collinsville, and New Britain, where Nutmeg goes to New Britain. So you'll see this. In fact, this next Thursday, this one, please come back to Jesus and his church. That's going to be put into two of the newspapers, the front page of the New Britain Herald and the front page of the Bristol. So if you're reading the Bristol paper next week on a Thursday and Friday, you'll see that please come back to Jesus and his church. Okay? Now let me get a drink of water. And you don't realize that I just looked at this. I have a TikTok, and I just saw it, and also Instagram. And I got it. Somebody said, I liked your video from Instagram. Bill Dobbs sent you a friend request from Facebook. A man from Instagram, I liked your video. A man from Instagram said, boy, I really liked your video. Well, the video that I gave was just a short 60-second news, the good news. And what does the good news say? Well, let's see, maybe I could play it for you. I get the sound. Let's see if I could do it, but I'll give you an idea of it. Let me, it's a picture of me in the studio here, and if I can get the sound, and
created you. The good news is that you're made in the image and likeness of God. The good news is that you're filled with God's love. The good news is that no one can love as you love. Yes, the good news is God present within you. Respect yourself because you are a temple of God. That's the good news. This is Father Ed reporting from the FNGN.
so that's just a 60-second spot. I have almost 400 little 60-second meditations on the TikTok. And if you'd like to see the other 400, just check TikTok, Ed Nadonley, A-R, with the A, Ed /Nadonley, and you'll be able to see the 400 TikToks. Now, I just did this one in the studio here right before we started the show, and I see that already 47 people have looked at it. Now, tonight or tomorrow morning, I'll have 2,000, 3,000, or 4,000. But the one that got the most was this one. Now, let's see. Knock on wood. Knock on wood. Knock on wood. Now, what does that mean, knock on wood? Well, 373,000 people looked at that mini 60-second. Well, when you knock on wood, when you say, knock on wood, I hope I stay healthy. Knock on wood, I don't have cancer. Knock on wood, that I got my job. Knock on wood, I hope I can hit another home run. Knock on wood, I hope we haven't fought for a long time. So you knock on wood for a blessing. But what's that wood that you're knocking on? That is the wood of the cross. Yes, when you knock on wood, like this, knock on wood, what you're doing is knocking on the wood of the cross, asking God to protect you so you'll keep that job, so you won't have cancer, so your family will stay together, or I'll be able to go back to work. All those things that you ask for, and you say, knock on wood, what you're doing is knocking on the cross of Christ. And most people don't realize it's not superstition. It's not superstition at all. It is really a visual way of praying. You didn't realize that when you knock on wood, you're asking Jesus to protect you. So that's very, very important. Now, on the other TikToks that I have, they're on different topics. And I have one on devotion to Mary. I have a statue of Mary. And let me see if I could play it to you. Let's see.
Oh, Mary, look down upon me with love. Oh, Mary, look down upon me with faith. Oh, Mary, look down upon me with hope. Oh, Mary, I love you as my mother. I know you love me as your son and as your daughter. Help me remember that I always have you as my mother. I know you, like Jesus, love me more today than yesterday, less today than tomorrow. Oh, Mary, please look down upon me as I look upon you. Help me remember that you are my loving mother. Thank you for being my mother. I love you.
And that's a beautiful picture of Mary. I can't show you, but it's here on the TikTok. So those are some examples of the 400 TikToks that I have. And I have 588,000 people who like it. And I also have about 33,000 who are daily followers of my TikTok. But that doesn't count the Instagram. There are thousands of people on Instagram because I just read a couple of notes from them. And then I read one of Bill Dobbs, who used to be here, from Facebook. And I have another friend, when he takes my TikTok and he sends it out to 1,000 people. So I know of at least 1 million people who've looked at my TikTok. Just one was 373,000, knock on wood. Another one, I had one with the phone, and I had the regular phone, and then I was saying, it's an iPhone. It was a regular phone, and I was making fun of the iPhone. And why do we call it iPhone? Because it's all about me, myself, and I. While the phone on the wall, you answer and you reach out to someone. But when it's the iPhone, it's all about yourself. And when we talk about addiction, there's all kinds of addiction. There's alcohol. I work in the prisons. I asked, there's 19 fellas there, and I said, how many of you started with marijuana? 18 out of 19 started with marijuana. A couple of days ago, I was up at Bristol having my car serviced, and I got a TikTok call, and somebody said, Father, I'm schizophrenic. And I said, well, where do you live? And she says, I live in Bristol. I said, well, let's go to the restaurant, and I'll buy you a sandwich. So when we sat down, I said, can I ask you a question? When did you start smoking marijuana? And she says, 14. And now you're 30 years old, and you've graduated to crack. Did anybody ever tell you that if you smoke marijuana, you can become a schizophrenic? Psychotic problems, lose your memory, your IQ falling down. I have somebody who's was taking medical marijuana, but she started getting dizzy. Now it's been a year now since she's been off of the marijuana, and she's still dizzy. I have another one, a friend of mine, who in college used to sell marijuana so that he could get through college. He was very successful, and he became a tremendous successful businessman. But he smoked marijuana throughout his life. And back in 1930, we knew that cigarettes smoking causes cancer. But we paid off the doctors, we paid off the scientists, and now we have over 300,000 people dying from cancer every year. We're concerned about the COVID, but I'm much concerned about the cancer from cigarettes. Now that same toxic that hits the lungs, oxygen, that goes into your lungs where cancer is formed. Now that's the same toxic oxygen that's going into your lungs from marijuana. So I've experienced three things. One, who's still dizzy. Two, that they have, they're dizzy. The other friend of mine died from cancer, and the other person is schizophrenic. But we know that marijuana affects the brain. Why is it in Colorado right now, you've got so many homeless people, so many now out of work, you become indifferent. And the growing problem in Colorado, now they're thinking we should change the rules because things are going mad. There's so many homeless people there, people who are just indifferent, people who are dying from cancer. There's one guy who got caught on marijuana and he was high, and they couldn't bring him down in the ambulance. So it does affect your brain, and it affects your heart also. 25% of people watching this program have a heart condition. They don't even know about it. So you turn around and tremendous heart trouble from it. And the third problem is the problem of the lungs. So the brain, the lungs, and the heart all are affected by marijuana. So the good news is people are starting to wake up to it. And I notice in some countries where it's been allowed for a long time, teenagers now are rebelling of what happened to their parents. And the parents, really become zombies. So when you talk about being addicted, when you take medical marijuana, you can just get addicted. And I've got a friend of mine who's a policeman, and he's in Brantford. He stands directing traffic, and he smells the marijuana as cars go by. I had lunch with two scientists a couple of days ago. I blessed their house and I blessed their kids. And they left Colorado. And they said, you can't go into the city. You talk about smog in Beijing because of the industry. The smog in these cities that you can't even breathe because of the smell of that comes into your lungs. So you get secondary smoke that causes cancer. Imagine how much secondary smoke from marijuana is going to cause cancer in the future. So what my experience is that in prison, it's a gateway for some. Secondly, it affects your mind, your heart, and your lungs. And it affects your whole attitude. I remember 35 years ago, I met a young couple that I married, and the fellow was, we'll call him Henry. Henry was smoking marijuana. And I said to Henry, I said, Henry, if you don't smoke, you don't stop smoking marijuana. That's when I didn't know much about it. If you don't stop smoking marijuana, you're going to end up in a divorce. And within 5 years, that couple broke because he was married to marijuana and not to his wife. So when we talk about addiction, drugs is one thing, alcohol is another. But right now, more people die from alcohol than, I just had a friend call me yesterday, and his friend's been drinking vodka, and he's divorced now, and he can't see his son. So he's running to his other wife, which is vodka, and he's knocking off bottles of vodka. And that's even a bigger killer than marijuana. But what happens with accidents? Accidents are going to go up, and we can't tell whether the person's high on marijuana or not. I had a friend of mine, he bought his son a beautiful car. He was 16 years old. And the boy went to the party, and they're smoking marijuana. And so he got in a car, and he started going fast. He hit a tree and got killed. Now, if he wasn't smoking, it was not smoking marijuana, where would he be? He'd be alive today. So it takes life. It takes your mind, your heart, and your lungs. It takes your attitude too, and it affects your family life. And you're causing secondary smoke in other people. I stopped at a stop sign on Asylum Avenue in Hartford, and those two girls were standing there smoking marijuana, having a great time. And I felt so sorry for them, because once you get hooked on it, and you can't stop. Now, whether it's gambling, alcohol, or there are so many other, food addiction, TV addiction. This is the big one, addicted to the phone. You can't go anywhere without a phone. I have a fellow who sleeps with his phone instead of his wife, because he can't. As soon as he gets up, he's got to see what's happening. Yes, this can become an addiction, and it's your choice. You can say yes or no in the beginning, but once you get addicted, you're not going to have that freedom. So I want to say thank you very much for watching, and if you'd like to keep in touch, just call me. That's my cell phone number, 860-335-2342. 860-335-2342. This is Father Edna Donnelly from the Good News Fund. And let's end it with a prayer. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. God bless you. A good day, and I'll hear you and see you again.